us need to think again. Maybe this is another reason they don't allow us to explore the North Pole.
I'm just going to say it. If you have logic and common sense, you know that Devil's Tower is not the result of the random chance of magma hardening in perfect hexagonal structures. Devil's Tower was an ancient tree. Tabletop mountains are ancient tree stumps. What the Samdam else have we been lied to about in this reality? And if they were giant trees, which they were, who cut them down? How did they get cut down so flatly? Did they use a steel chainsaw, diamond bladed? I mean, come on. The story I heard in the book of Enoch is that there were giants on earth. They were cannibalistic and evil. So God wanted to flood the earth, but he knew if he flooded the earth, the giants will just climb these giant trees and survive the flood. So he sent angels down to cut down the trees before he flooded the earth. It's either that, or we came from a giant explosion called the Big Bang, and random rocks formed perfect flat surfaces naturally from erosion. Which one's more of a stretch to you, do you think? Devil's Tower, come on, man. Evidence right in your face.
Was this guy the other day? I sent you this. He found this massive, what looks like, it looks like the trabecular bone, but then there's this plate. I don't know if it's...
So there are a lot of people in the meltology crowd that would say this is a man-made structure, and I don't believe it is. Just because you get these rectangles and these sharp lines where it's cleaving doesn't mean that it has to be something that was man-made. You know, people are going to look at this, and that's what a lot of them are going to think. And I think that yeah, I'll show some examples of how tree breaks down, and you'll see that it does similar things. There's also some clips I have of these megalithic stone structures that people are doing boots on the ground investigation. They're finding them on Google Earth and going out, and you know, a lot of people are saying this is examples of megalithic architecture on a scale that we can't even fathom, and I don't believe that's the case. I think that this is also tree on a massive scale that's broken down, and you do get these geometric shapes. I think the problem with the meltology in particular is that everything's a building to them, and they're not including the very obvious evidence for the trees in the equation. And when they start to do that, I think a lot more things will fall into place. I mean, look at the complexity of this one knot on one tree and all the different directions the grain goes. And you know that you see stuff like this on Google Earth all the time, and you see it also physically in stone all the time. So you know, and then there's a lot of people who are looking at these kinds of structures, like, you know, Roger from Mud Fossil University. If this were to be shaped like this, for example, right? Somebody might think, oh, it's a petrified vagina of a titan or something, and it's far more likely that it's just the knot of a tree. So I'm a big fan of Occam's razor. You know, all things being equal, the simplest explanation is likely you know, the truth. And so when it comes to petrified genitalia, I think it's far more likely coming from tree. When it comes to the you know, the waterfalls spurting from trees. That's a lot of water coming from a crack. So obviously the tree is tapped into something below that has pressure. And that water's reaching all the way up to the top of the tree. But, you know, if you cut that whole tree down, where's that water going to go? it's just going to keep pouring out. All right, I was going to try and save all the clips, but I'm just not going to get to it. So just looking again at this subject of sap, and this is one tree, and if you think of this petrifying, you're going to get all kinds of different shapes, and all of that is coming from one single tree. And going back to what Stacy said at the beginning of the stream, I don't believe that this is petrified. I believe that it's oxidized, right? It's clearly not stone. It's still attached to the tree, but it can get pretty hard. And I've got some photos of that as well. Let's see. If we go into just quickly look at some photos of sap and the way it manifests. It's like scabs for us, right? It comes, it heals the tree, so in the work of Hangman and what I've shown before, the sap is petrifying to quartz in different ways, and when the heat is high enough, it's gonna turn black. It's gonna become like coal or obsidian, and it also probably depends on the starting material as well. Mica is embedded. The mica is the bark of the tree, and this is just looking at a tree stump, and you can see it's just naturally kind of becoming glassy and hard. This is all just oxidized sap. So if you have that buried in high mineral content waters, and those minerals embed themselves into that material, then you're going to get petrified sap in that fashion as well. And there's a big ball of it that was like 4 feet wide. And here, obviously tree. I mean, you'd have to be blind not to see that this is wood, but just this little tiny section right here already destroys the mainstream narrative, which tells us that the largest petrified tree on Earth is like 8 foot in diameter, which is absurd. And here you can see it's obviously a tree knot, and all of this is stone. So it's clearly petrified tree, but it's it's not in alignment with what we've been taught about geology and how this stone has supposedly formed. And this is my favorite of all the different sites that Hangman took me to. It's so magnificent up close and seeing this. So imagine this on a larger scale. This might only be maybe a foot wide or something, but imagine something similar, but this is 30 feet wide. And that's exactly the kind of thing that they would dig into looking for gold and silver and copper. And you can see it's almost like there's like a rainbow of color in there. It's mostly white, but if you look closely, there's all kinds of other colors and hues. Yeah, so just wanted to show sap, and then we can also look briefly at the different ways in which wood itself manifests and breaks down. And this is what, when I get into some of these other video clips later, this is what I'm talking about, is you get these straight lines. So the tree is growing with the vertical lines, that we all would expect. We're not seeing horizontal lines, but once the bark is removed, the inner structure of the tree, when it starts to break down, it cleaves in these lines. And a little piece like this, which you could hold between your thumb and forefinger, in the Black Hills of South Dakota, that would be 50 to 100 feet wide. It's pretty phenomenal to see And then obviously it's gonna break down and become the forest floor. But if this were to petrify, it becomes sandstone, especially if it's cedar. And it seems that the greatest of the trees, according to the Bible and also to Hangman's research, were cedar trees. And so there's just so many things to contemplate when you're looking at geology through the eyes of, the great trees, because there's so many different ways in which trees manifest, so many species, so many types of sap. And you can see, if this were laying down and buried with earth around it, but was on a much, much greater scale, we would be told that this is all sedimentary layering that's been upended through tectonic activity, and that's how it swirls. Well, if it's brittle, how is it going to bend and swirl in all of these different ways? So that there would have to be heat and melt involved. This is, it's just, I can just breeze through these. I mean, look at this. Imagine that big, and imagine it, being petrified. Something like this, how does that end up looking? If you're on Google Earth, you're probably going to see stuff like this, and not have any idea what you're looking at. And it's just more example of tree. And this is like what Derp and I were talking about earlier, is that this is Google Earth, and this is a tree stump. So, or tree knots. So you got trees that look like rainbows. I think this is done by man when the tree is small. And then again, here you have a tree knot. You can see this is completely different from what this is, as far as the type of wood. It's obviously harder. And so you get these swirling of the knot, and then you get the breaking down, and you get the blocks. And it can be oxidized and white, or it can still have all of its color. And it can petrify with the color, or it can petrify oxidized. And this is what I was talking about before, of one of these little chunks being this. And I mean, look at the beauty, the majesty of these swirls and this grain. So a lot of the structures around that people are seeing, that they're calling building, I think they're just looking at this sort of thing, because they're seeing all of these lines where you get this change of color, and they're saying this is brick and this is mortar, and then it's brick and then mortar. But is it possible that what you're looking at is tree? And until they start bringing that into the equation, I think that the meltologists are going to be making all kinds of grandiose claims about what they're seeing, and it's going to look like madness to the mainstream, as does the big tree topic. So, and so here you get your concentric rings. That there's a bunch of sites like the salt mines and the marble caves where they have these concentric rings in them, and it doesn't make any sense from a sedimentary layering model. And this tree is actually petrified, and you can see it's still got a lot of its original color, despite being petrified. So just wanted to review that. And here you can see this one is burned, but only portions of it have burned. Right, so lightning probably struck this tree while it was still alive, and then you've got all of this, and then you got these very, very, symmetrical looking blocks. Now, if this was 50 or 100 feet wide, it would look exactly like some of the video clips I'm going to show shortly, which a lot of people want to claim has to be man-made because of its geometric structure, and that's just not true. And again, here you've got knots in the tree. These are all cross sections, and you've got the white and the darker, So the more you familiarize yourself with tree in all of its varying manifestations, the easier it's going to be to spot different things when you're out in the real world. And Hangman had this in one of his videos, and he said, now imagine this covered with all kinds of mud and earth, and you're just going to have all these different pieces sticking every which way, and you're going to try and make sense of it on a macro scale, but it's not really possible because you're looking at lots of different chunks of different structures that are going every which way. So obviously this is all been cut by saw, but it could also be torn apart by cataclysm, and you've got all these different chunks that are just sitting there every which way. So I just wanted to kind of go through that real quickly. This is a real interesting manifestation as well, because when we see some of these other structures, it starts to make sense that it's possible it could be tree, because it they manifest that way. So this is an interesting one. Might be pareidolia, or it might be giving you the middle finger. I think that is for the closed-minded. And that is enough of that. So this is a site, I believe, here in Spain. And again, the meltologists are going to call this former building. And I think it's far more likely that what we're looking at, this is obviously sandstone layering, but I think it's far more likely what we're looking at is the remains of tree. And I don't have a problem with them having carved into the stone, because I don't think it was stone when they did it. And I've talked a lot about obsidian coming from tree, and this is ironclad proof that that's the case. You can see that it's wood on the outside, but inside it's now obsidian. So how did that happen? Probably plasma, or just an incredible amount of heat. Got I'll just show some of the images of obsidian trees. Here we go. So this is a structure in Oregon. Wait, where is it? Here it is. And I've seen, these are just screenshots from a video, but when you see this area here, you can see all the micro layering of tree, and then there's this section in the middle that's vitrified due to heat or plasma, and then if you take one of these chunks out and you start to polish it up, you're going to end up with rainbow obsidian. You can see the micro layering is still there even though it's vitrified. And I've shown video clips. This is rainbow obsidian, and this is an obsidian field, right? So this is like that tree got hit. That's all I can say. I mean, this just looks like it's mayhem. So I think we're when we look at this kind of stuff, tourmaline, obsidian, they've got all these different Latin names, but you're just looking at different manifestations of how the tree breaks down and what happens. And here you get the mainstream narratives on what's happening and where this is coming from. But I think it's when you start to look at all of the different data points in favor of the trees, the stumps, the tepuis, the marble caves, the salt mines, all of it, and you just see it all as a gestalt, then it Occam's razor works way more for explaining this with, oh look, there's another potential stump there in the background, right? And then this is just a field of obsidian. So something was here and something got hit to the point where it started to melt. And there you can really start to appreciate the beauty of the obsidian and how it's still got all the swirls of the tree grain and the micro layering. Another obsidian flow. Yeah, and then, you know, this could have been part of a smaller knot. And then coal, you know, what, like if you put coal, or sorry, if you put wood underground and burn it, and it burns in an oxygen-free environment, you're going to end up with coal. Or if it's done right and it's truly oxygen-free, you're going to end up with biochar. So this is Angel Falls. This is the tallest waterfall in the world in Venezuela. It's, you know, it's a tepui. You're flying over it, and you know, when you look back here, where is all the water coming from? You know, there's a lot of people asking that question now, and so not only did it have to get up there, so there has to be pressure, you know, or some process by which that water from the deep is being sucked upward, and it's definitely not coming from rainfall. So yeah, people are waking up to this idea more and more, questioning stuff like this.
Incredible. Guys, I need to show you this. I've never seen anything like this. There's a river which suddenly disappears after waterfall. Look at this. Where's the water going? It's just gone. This is crazy. There's the river on this side, and then comes around the corner here, and then it's just disappearing. Incredible. Guys, I need to...
Easy come, easy go. Here's Bernie. He was out touring the land, and he's saying that this is not natural, and I don't agree with him. Just because
the
there's...
wow factor of Utah is... well, wow. We have the beehive. Wow, the beauty. And we got Aiden and Carol walking up to the cave. What are they gonna find once they're inside?
So even if they find structure inside, it doesn't mean that this was once a building. And I'm going to go into just showing native sandstone briefly here in its myriad of formations. We're taught, you know, the sedimentary layering model. This is Red Rock, I think, in Boulder. And when you see things like this, a lot of the meltology people are going to look at something like this and go, this was once building. And I'm just like, you know, how can you think that? It's just because you have this alternating striations doesn't mean that it's brick, mortar, brick, mortar. You know, something like this where these are going upward like this, and then it's horizontal here. This is exactly what tree does. This is not abnormal for tree whatsoever. And you can see, again, the layering, swirls, just weirdness. And it makes way more sense when you look at trees. And this, you know, where are the openings? If this was once building, is this all melted brick? No way, Jose, you know. So the meltology people need to up their game and start incorporating other theories into their theory rather than just rejecting them and calling everything a mountain that was once a building. I mean, look at this. This is so clearly biological. There's no way that the mainstream narrative on how this formed is accurate, and there's no way that that's a building. It's clearly biogeology. This is one of the best. You know, this is what wood does. I tried to find a clip of an amazing site that is just huge, and it's showing all of this sort of thing, and it's so clearly tree grain that you're looking at when you have the eyes to see it. And then you get structures like this, and again, they're going to see straight lines, and they're going to say, oh, this was once a building. It's like a, you know, what is that, the wave in Utah? You know, if these are buildings, where's the sign of building? So it's way more likely to me that before this petrified into sandstone, it was wood, and that material was soft, and they were able to carve it and you know, make it into whatever they wanted to. Yeah, so just wanted to show some sandstone. So this clearly is showing signs of melt, but you can see underneath the melt, you can see all of the layers of wood. So, you know, just like wood can vitrify to obsidian, it can also melt into this. No problem. I could show you pictures all day long. And the nice thing about a huge amount of what I have gathered in my collection is that it was all before AI took off. So, or not all, but most of it. So, you know, there's a lot of people who are like, this is former castles. And if you just look at tree, particularly cedar, you'll see that this is exactly what it does and how it breaks down and how it erodes. And why would it be castle with no signs of any human activity? Now, there are places like the mesas in Utah and other places where they have these kinds of structures, and then they've carved into them. In some cases, those channels apparently go very deep. And, you know, again, you're looking at, they came after. They didn't build the whole structure and then it got hit. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't places that are built, you know, that are buildings the size of mountains. That it seems pretty obvious that there's some, you know, I've seen some remarkable sites. At some point, I'd like to get deeper into some of the best evidence that the meltologists have, and then maybe even talk with somebody who's open-minded, who's from that camp, and do a comparison between, you know, these particular sites that are slam dunks for them, and compare it to the trees. This is it has a very Garden of the Gods feel to it, which I got to visit with Hangman. So this is same stuff, but more scorched, right? And where did the Sahara come from? Like, let's look at Google Earth again for a second. So if you think of this as a tree stump, you know, all of this is desert now. And if we go to somewhere like Madagascar, which is still, it's not desert, it's green, you get into these different places and you're like, oh, look at this. You know, they're going to say this is basalt, and this was volcanic activity, and it got pushed upward and then rapidly cooled. But it sure looks a lot like a tree stump. And when you get into it up close, you can see, look, there's even a knot, right? All this, if this was just lava and basalt, why does it have this grain and this color? So that's just one of many on the island of Madagascar that there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, another. So, and then also, if the oceans were lower, how many of our islands around the world are just these? You know, what we call volcanoes are they not just smoldering former tree? It's definitely a possibility. And so back to the Sahara then. Right? If you if you think about, what if there were a whole bunch of these trees and they got hit and then they got petrified, and then what was wood became sandstone? Well, what happens to sandstone when it breaks down? It becomes sand. And you know, you can see all this flow, like going from here. Obviously it flowed out into the Atlantic, so you know, the scarring across the earth of great cataclysm and flooding is undeniable. All of the religions talk about it, and even mainstream science, but they give us their 65 million year, you know, asteroid strike that wiped out the dinosaurs. Got a fun clip about that in a moment. So yeah, scorched earth, and then it, you know, scorched tree, and then it becomes this. So maybe that explains why this sand has that color to it, and it's not white. A lot of people look at this kind of stuff and they're like, oh, look, it looks like a, I don't know, a wild boar or something, and you know, they're quick to jump at, it looks like something, so it must be something. So that would be pareidolia in my mind. Nothing about this would make me think that it was a former creature. But a lot of people see that, and then they start outlining the facial features, and they don't realize that they're just victims of pareidolia. And this is, you know, so again, like, why is this in here? If this is sedimentary layering, what the heck happened here? And if you just think of this as something that was formerly biology, then it makes sense that it's going to have different forms of tissue. And I could go on and on and on with that. But so I don't think for a second, Bernie, that this is former building. I know you do, but it's to me it makes way more sense that this is former tree, and then, you know, they carved into it. Thing that I came across the other day, and the meltology people are calling this brick. And again, I suppose it could be, but it could also be something biological very easily. But the default for that crew is that if it's this color and it's got that brick shape, it must have been brick. And so that, you know, I don't know where this site is or what. I mean, it's high up on a mountaintop, so that's an interesting thing. But to me, this is just more example of biogeology, very likely. Yeah.
Of trees that have been petrified and turned into crystal, and these massive petrified trees can be found all over our world. This is what the Bible told us. This is what our ancestors told us, that we used to live in a much bigger realm. And I want you to ask yourself this: does this truly look like
AI?
A mountain to you? Or does it look like a tree stump with a...
Yeah, there is a site that looks like that, but that is clearly manipulated and AI.
flat top? All of these huge mountains with flat tops used to be colossal trees, petrified trees.
And he's using the word all again, which I think is dangerous, because there's other possibilities, but I think a great number of them are. And yeah, so This was an interesting one as well.
Show you what I just found in the mountains.
So just look around. All of this is just fragmented pieces of petrified tree, and then this steampunk technology. And this is high up too. So like, how did they get the machinery in there to do this? It's wild. It continues through. So this is high up. You can see the trees down there. And then this is like, where did they put the machinery in order to drill this hole? It's the more you find out about this place, the weirder it gets.
Let me show you.
Okay, so now we're getting to what I was talking about before. These massive structures that people are saying are signs of former megalithic construction, and I don't agree. I think that these are biogeology, but we're talking, you know, a fractal level up.
My angle measure with me in my backpack, so I think I'm going to try to find a way to get down there. Okay, I don't think we saw this one.
So again, the claim is that you can't have right angles and these perfectly straight lines unless this was somehow man-made. And as I showed before when we went through the examples of different, you know, manifestations of tree, that's clearly not true.
Fine. Look at that massive split in this block. I was thinking that 10-foot ladder I've got could help me get on top of these things. No way. All right, I think that is one of the most impressive blocks of stone on this entire cliffside. And somehow we did not see it last time we were here. All right, now we're going below the cliff layer on a hunt for more petroglyphs and to see these immense cubes from the bottom up before we start heading up the point.
Yeah, it's very blocky. This guy found this on Google Earth and went looking for it. I mean, it's nice to see people actually getting out there and looking at these things up close and personal and with drones. But to think that this is somehow man-made, I can't see it. It makes way more sense that you're looking at a chunk of what was a very, very large tree, and this is just how it's breaking down, just like in those examples I showed earlier. It's way up there. Pretty wild. You know, he could be the first person in a very, very long time to even be in that location just because he was cruising around on Google Earth. So, you know, check out, play on Google Earth and see what's in your region, because you might be surprised by what amazing sights are there. So here we get into the melted cathedrals. This is what I was saying before, is that it's far more plausible that this is former tree than what they're positing. Now this, oh, I missed it. I thought you could use a slider on Instagram, but I guess not. Or maybe it's only on the app version. So the, so again, if you look all around, this is looking like tree, and then it's carved into, and if that were soft, they could have done amazing things, you know, while it was still malleable. But to say that it's always been stone, and then they somehow got tools and machinery up here to carve into solid rock to create these structures for who knows what reason. To me, the other option sounds more plausible. And so they're just pointing out all of these openings as proof that it's a building, when it may not be that. This stuff is all over the world. How many of you knew about this when you were younger? I sure didn't. And here, this is Bologna in Italy. They had all of these towers. There's another place called San Gimignano that's close to Siena that I got to visit both of those sites, and massive amounts of towers. And so then their suggestion is that places like this became this, and I would say this looks more like the fragment of a tree stump, and they're comparing it to the cathedral in Milan, which I think is silly. And this does look like there's melt, so it could have been tree carved into, and then comes the melt, so all three. Incredible places, though. I'd love to see some of these someday. Right, and this is there, again, claims that this had to have been formerly the whole mountain was a structure, and but somehow everything melted, but there's this space around it, and this remained untouched. Like I don't know. It's just there's lots of claims being made without sufficient evidence, in my opinion. Anyway, that's my meltology thing. So here again, they're talking about the 90-degree angles, so it has to be man-made. It couldn't be coming from nature because of the precision, and that's just not the case. Things do cleave and break in perfect lines.
Nephilim, giants, and titans. Look at those blocks, man. Yeah, well, this is the new stuff he found. Look at these. These look like bricks. Or they could be dragon scales. Some people in the other video were saying this is dragon scales. This is a huge petrified, deceased animal.
Or just part of tree that's starting to break down.
Now, this looks cut to me. This looks cut.
Straight lines don't mean cuts, as I showed before with the different ways that trees break down in the forest.
I know people are going to say this is natural, but these look like bricks, laid bricks. That look natural to me. Look how big that is. This is like, now all this stuff up here, this brings suspicion, because okay, well this might be natural, but I don't know. Like it's half and half. Some of it looks like it was cut and laid, and some of it looks like it's natural.
And it's interesting that it's this layer on top of this, which is obviously very different. So, yeah. So this is again looking at concretions, which a lot of people thought looked like petrified trees that are laying down, like a forest was downed, and
oh, here is a really large one. Look at that.
But these actually are curved on the backside, so I think these are just concretions that are embedded in this material and have broken off.
There's like another ball.
There's one.
It looks like it's kind of
right
buried in the cliff face. I'll get a bit closer. Oh, this is tough climbing. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Oh, here's a cool one that looks like it's separating.
It's curved.
And could actually plop out of the wall at any moment. So I think that even though they look flat, like cross sections of tree stumps, that's just because these ones are on the edge of the cliff, and I think maybe the weather or something has shorn them in half. But in actuality, there's probably more.
I just realized I've been going through all these tabs, and I forgot the whole point of the stream today was quarries and road cuts. So Derp got me onto this subject, and it's just more examples of the of the obvious, in my opinion. So sedimentary layering, and then because heat or something, it's gonna zigzag, and then you see these curves, and there's no fractures. This is all very brittle material, but there's no fractures. So this could easily be explained as having formerly been wood and then petrifying, and then you wouldn't have to get around that. How does hard stone do such a sharp turn like that without fracturing? But these are road cuts, and it's just another one of those truth in plain sight things. What they tell us in the mainstream is that these are known as synclinals. And actually Montgo has one. I've talked about synclinals many times in previous videos. And it's basically where they're saying the layers of strata, because of some kind of action that is happening in the earth, are curving like this. And again, you get up close to it and you don't see, you might see cracks, but oftentimes you'll see these curves in stone, and there's no fractures. And so if you just start to think of all of the examples I was giving of tree grain earlier, and you look at these locations, it makes way more sense. Here's a smaller version of the same thing, right? And this is a knot or a branch that has been severed. And okay, so if this was all curved layers, where did all the rest of the material go? Where is it all? And you've got this really sharp curvature, so it should be up here, the material. And again, tectonic activity, sedimentary layering, movement it's really hard to explain all of these different directions and swirls and concentric circles. This is a classic example of a synclinal. Now, if you think of this as a chunk of a tree that may be extended backwards or something, that makes more sense that then this was part of layers that the continentals, the tectonic plates, they collided, and somehow this magically happened. It's just, to me at this stage, this is so obviously tree. It's identical to what I was showing earlier in the smaller versions in the forest. So yeah, when you're out driving and you go through one of these road cuts, you've got these layers going almost vertical, and then this is doing a smiley face, and it makes way more sense in a biogeological giant tree model. And probably depending on the heat or what happened to the tree while it was still alive, if it got hit by massive lightning, then you're going to get these darker sections of either coal or obsidian. That's a pretty interesting sight. And again, look at this. Okay, so sedimentary layering, how does this make sense? You've got these lines coming up and they just stop, right? And then you've got this swirl shaped like an M going through with the repeating pattern of the different colors. And I just reject the notion that somehow this can magically come about by things banging together. It's just absurd at this point to me. So those are road cuts. Keep your eyes open. Just because they have a name for it in Latin doesn't mean that their explanation for how it came about is accurate. That one's magnificent. Look at that thing. So I think you're just looking at little pieces of big trees, and this one, this is a slam dunk for you know, destroying the sedimentary layering narrative. So these are vertical, and then this is going this way, and this is going another way. So this is just obviously something that grew, because the mainstream explanations fall short. And then we're to believe like the Earth just decided to go black and then white and then black and then white and black and white, and it was just all from dead plant and animal life laying down and then eventually getting compressed and then melting and swirling. It's kind of silly actually now. Yeah, so that is what I wanted to show about road cuts, and then there's the topic of quarries as well. So I've looked at a lot of photos of quarries, and you know, I'm most of the time I'm just puzzled. These lines, they create these using diamond rope saws. So they drill holes in that they can insert ropes through, and the ropes are embedded with diamond, and then they just have a pulley system with, you know, it's like steampunk technology, and they just have to use water to keep the rope cool enough that it doesn't melt, and then over time they can just cut through these massive blocks of stone. And they want us to think like those sites that we saw with the drone footage, you know, the Meltology crowd, they want us to think that these structures are, you know, they're quarrying these and then they're moving those blocks up to those locations to create these megalithic structures. And I think it's more likely that, you know, that's former tree. Oh, I'm just looking at how trees grow. Or sorry, this is bone formation, osteocytes and osteons, and not sure why that's in there with the quarry thing. Oh, because I was thinking about it from the perspective of Titans, where you've got the different grain of how bone grows, and then you have these lacunas, I think they're called, or these holes. Yeah, lacunae. So when you see some of the quarries, I'll show pictures in a second. You know, it may not just be tree. Titans are also a possibility. So these are, I think, some of the best marble quarries are in Italy, you know, hence all the statues. But when you get inside of some of them, you can start to see the grain of the marble. And here, for example. This folder is a bit of a mishmash, but this definitely looks like it was done by machinery. I have no other explanation for that. I had a conversation with Topher Gardner, and he was talking about an experience where he was in an area like this, and there was a massive lightning strike, and then he walked over after the fact to where the lightning had struck, and it had burned just a perfect cylindrical hole in the stone. So if that's like our size lightning of today can burn, you know, a smaller, I don't know what the diameter of the hole was, but you know, it's possible that giant plasma arcs could potentially do something like that. So this is where it gets really interesting, is the kind of stuff that can pull out of the quarries, right? The color. To to me, it all just makes more sense if you're thinking of it as tree or biology of some sort. A lot of trippy stone out there. Yeah, someone said marble is very, very tree-like. Especially the marble caves. When you see those, I'll pull up some photos of that in a moment. But yeah, quarries far out, kinds of stone being pulled out of places all over the earth. This is what we, think of when we think of a quarry, is they're just pulling out marble or granite or something like that. But yeah, so what's going on here? Like, who cut this chunk? How? What is this? Why does it look like that inside? And here you really get a sense of what's probably tree grain or osteons. Like I was showing before with bone and how bone grows. So some things may be titan. I think there's far fewer titans than there are trees. Just like in a forest, there's way more trees than animals roaming around. But yeah, if I had seen all the sites and the photographs that I've shown this evening, back when I was a kid, I would have had a totally different view of geology than what I had. I thought there's nothing more boring than looking at rocks or archaeology, digging up bones and stuff. But this is an example of what I was talking about. I've got a video where I was just presenting the idea that you don't have to invoke some high-level technology like lasers or something we can't fathom in order to explain the tree stump phenomenon, like Devil's Tower and these plateaus around the world. They could have done it with steampunk technology. They could have had rope saws. They've got these pulley systems, and this is just a diamond embedded rope, and then they pump water in as it's doing its job, and given a long enough rope and enough time, you could have cut down one of those very, very big trees. So it doesn't have to be some aliens did it kind of an explanation. And yeah, so this is where I was just thinking of it from a bone perspective of like if the osteon, limestone, marble, that kind of stuff, that could explain the red color. And a lot of times the red will be oozing out of a hole. I've shown that with Montgo as well. And this is, they pull things out, and sometimes they've got it in its native form, and other times they're carving it. But this is what a lot of the stone around this region looks like. Some of the limestone in the world has shell and different things embedded into it, but the limestone here in this region looks a lot like this. It's got red iron ore in it, and then it has all these channels going in like Swiss cheese. And but there's no shell, mollusk, coral, anything embedded in any of it. And I'm not sure if that's AI or not. That's a pretty brilliant color. I haven't seen that in any of the it says Salina Turda, which is the one of the salt mines in either Romania or Poland. And this is what I was talking about. So, if it were Titan bone, you could have it looking exactly like what we're seeing in the quarries, and then there's going to be the occasional channel and maybe, a section where it's not white, it's red. things to ponder. Yeah, so road cuts, quarries, more potential evidence of the great trees or titans. Oh, this is a cool video. Check this out. Just to, this is some of the most precious wood in the world.
What kind of wood is this? This is Liyudao wood, about $120,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is purple heart wood, about $2,700 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is golden pregnano, about $34,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is lightning struck wood, about $2,700 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is berry golden pregnano, about $13,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is white nano, about $2,700 per gram. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is chicken blood vine wood, about $1,200 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is amber wood, about $80,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is rosewood, about $180,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is purple Ainan Wenhuali, about $130,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is pink oak, about $55,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is Burmese Wenhuali, about $6,000 per ton. What the hell kind of wood is this? This is Liyudao wood, about $120,000 per ton.
Incredible, this realm. So you can see just the majesty of the color and all the hues and everything. It's just, obviously, if you know, tree could have been way bigger, which even in the mainstream narrative, they tell us that everything was much bigger, you know, long ago. Use the example of the dragonfly many times, that could be as much as a meter wide. So if a dragonfly is a meter wide, how big does the tree get? And if you have all of these different species of tree with all these different colors, and they can all turn to stone, that could explain a lot of the amazing different kinds of minerals that we find in the, you know, what they classify as geology. Hey Bogan, nice to see you. Yeah, so here's another one from the I'm the Improbable Dreamer. I'm getting close to the end of my presentation here.
Perspective. It really is breathtaking from this view. Google Earth and satellite view and street pictures just do not do.
I mean, obviously, if you look at a tree stump that's broken off, it looks exactly like this.
Do it justice, like getting this close to it in the air does. Perhaps this tree, as it's not cut so perfectly straight like a lot of these other ancient trees are, perhaps it was hit with one of those massive plasma storms from one of the many other resets, because it definitely does look, even more so from this angle, like something struck the base of it and it blew up. Question everything, friends. Until next time. This is one of my favorite examples.
Yeah, so giant castle or former tree and branch or part of the trunk. I lean towards tree. Yeah, more looking at all the different exquisite detail in the old world sculptures. I think some were geopolymer, but there may have been petrification technology. Look at this, the imprints of the finger into the flesh. I've gotten to see many of these sculptures firsthand, because I lived in Italy for a few years, and you know, they're just as they're even more impressive in real life. And this is looking at more of what we've already talked about. Some more examples of
muebles de lujo e instrumentos musicales. ¿Sabes cuál es la madera más cara del mundo? Es tan costosa que incluso el sándalo rojo parece insignificante en comparación. ¿De qué madera se trata y para qué se utiliza? Vamos a descubrirlo. Cuando hablamos de maderas caras, probablemente hayas escuchado sobre el sándalo rojo. Su cultivo es completamente legal en la India, pero tarda entre 20 y 25 años en crecer un solo árbol. Después de tanta espera, un kilo de sándalo rojo se vende por unos 50 a 60 dólares. Por otro lado, la madera negra africana está considerada como la más cara hasta la fecha. Un solo árbol tarda aproximadamente 60 años en madurar y por eso su precio puede alcanzar entre 8,000 y 10,000 dólares por kilogramo. Esta madera es extremadamente especial y se utiliza para fabricar muebles de lujo e instrumentos musicales. ¿Sabes cuál es la madera más?
Yeah, just you know, the more you look into all this stuff, the more it just all unfolds. This place is it's phenomenal. So here, I think he's presenting the idea that well, let's just listen to what he's got to say here.
Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. The whole mountain area was a city, and it got melted down by a catastrophic high heat event.
I thought that was a really good transition because I could see that city was built very nicely against a mountain. And then so what happens if you had a fervent heat moment, the day of the Lord perhaps? Right. What would that city look like if it was so hot that it started to melt the mountain behind it? And obviously the structures in front of it, they might all melt together. Then you would not be able to discern between what was the original mountain and what was the structures. It looks like it's showing pockets of preservation amongst whatever happened to that place. Think of the concept.
Yeah, so if we lived in an Avatar realm and the trees were brought down before the flood would come to petrify those trees, they would have continued to utilize the tree to live. And so you would have had a lot of trees that were laying down horizontal, and then you would have gotten stuff like this probably. You know, where you get these mesa dwellings where you would have different layers. Some are harder than others, and they would carve into the softer layers, and the harder layers would support themselves, so it would be safe, and you wouldn't have to worry about you know, collapse of the site. And hey, James, welcome. Yeah, so I just wanted to show some of the sandstone dwellings. I think this is in England. And, you know, just like the native sandstone, which I was showing earlier, the only difference is that there's structures carved into them. And so a lot of people are saying that was done after it was stone. And I, as I've said many times now, I think that this happened when it was still soft. And then they created their cities, you know, just like Minas Tirith, you know, they carved in, and then eventually there was some kind of melt event. And, you know, so around the western U.S., there's these incredible sites, and, you know, like I said, it just looks like they went into the softer stone, or the softer material. And let's see here. Yeah, this sort of thing is all over the UK as well. I got into a beef with Paul Cook some years back because he was claiming that it was all coming from gigantic 3D polymer squirting machines, and I was like, just look at the sandstone, look at the sandstone dwellings, and he didn't want to listen. Nobody has to listen, but so I wanted to show, here we go. So this is, I'm not sure if this is Petra, but Petra looks exactly like this. So yeah, the carving in, but then you can see everything in here has tree grain in it. So what makes more sense, that this was formerly tree and they carved in when it was soft, or that this was somehow entirely man-made and then they created these blocks and you know, weaved all these layers into them? It doesn't make sense to me. This is Petra. in Jordan. So I was showing that before on Google Earth from above. Let's see. Petra. Oh, it was straight down. Right, so if you look at the macro of this region, it's got a very tree-like vibe, and you know, and then you get into Petra itself, and it looks like this on the inside. So if this is all, you know, man-made, carved into stone, why does it look like this on the inside? People into the meltology thing have lost the ability to see the forest for the trees, quite literally. I mean, look at this. There's no way that that is man-made. Even the ceiling, look up here. See all the micro layering? And this is exactly what tree does. So you get one layer and then another, and then you've got grain going through it every which way. This is looking out across. So I think all of this was tree, was carved into, and then a petrification event happened after the fact. That's my Occam's razor explanation after looking at this for years. And this is, I think, in Kinver in the UK, and you can see the layers here, and then you can see what the ceiling looks like up here. It's you know, just looks like twee to me. All right. Oh, just a couple more. This is from the front. Right. So to say that the mountains themselves were buildings and then got hit, and then this remains, and it just happens to be pristine, showing all of this layering, doesn't make sense to me. This looks like it got hit, but it also looks like wood everywhere underneath. And yeah, so inside Petra, outside Petra, and then you just have to look at the larger macro structure, and you can see that it's probably tree, as was this. Yeah.